a lot of my thought was, well, we have to make sure that the user experience is good throughout the user experience. I don't want to lose a user because I have a content layout shift on my onboarding when it's 3 pages in, where it doesn't matter to Google, but it matters to me as a company. Hi, welcome to SEO Unveiled. Today I've got a wonderful guest. Marina Kurz is with us, and she's got a ton of great experience. She works as an SEO Manager Onsite Tech at Statista and is also an onboarding mentor for the new Statista employees. One of her impressive accomplishments in SEO was the optimization of Statista.com due to the Google page experience update for mobile and desktop. She's super curious regarding SEO topics, always looking for new trends, visiting conferences, and is open-minded about what the SEO community is talking about. She feels that looking for what users want and trying new things is very helpful for making good SEO. Welcome, Marina. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this. It's always great to meet people across the globe. And, one thing I always wonder about is how people get into SEO. So why did you get into SEO in the first place?
So for the first time, I worked as an online marketing manager. It was generalistic online marketing, but I wanted to try something special. So I started SEO, and I think it's very nice because it's a big variety of tasks and an exciting environment. Especially Google tries many things regarding SEO, and it's also nice, the communication into different departments.
Oh yeah, it seems like we're always in SEO communicating with a lot of different departments to get people on the same page. That's definitely for sure. But before we jump into something like that, one thing that I always want to understand is a little bit about, the different perspectives in the community and a lot of different voices, and people come from a lot of different backgrounds like yourself. And so one thing I always wonder is like, what trends in general are you noticing in SEO right now that you're super excited about?
I think the user experience, it's very important, and the improvement for mobile devices, page speed, especially the core web vitals, and video content, rich snippets, and I think also voice search and real-time data. It's like live corona statistics, especially in online newspapers, and good content. Or the consider of user intent. I think it's very important and one of the big trends for the future.
Yeah, I mean, user intent is always so curious to me of like, how are you actually figuring out user intent, and what are you doing in that realm?
We are looking on our traffic, and so we also figured out what kind of users are on our website. So we have new users which are very new on our website, and we have users with an account, so they knew our website, and so we can figure out what our clients want, maybe statistics or infographics, which they can integrate in their company or use for their company.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of different use cases for what people are searching for when it comes to statistics or data in general. So I feel like that's a hard thing to really understand. Are you doing mostly focused on interviews with users, or based upon keywords, or things like that? Like how are you trying to dig into the user intent more? Like, I'm just wondering.
I think it's more it depends, but the most time we are looking for the right keywords and what they are searching for. Yes, we figured out with the Google Search Console and with Google Analytics, and so we can better understand the data to make better content for our users.
It's so funny to me because it's like, if you're using data really well and you're kind of like a data company, it's super it's super interesting where it's almost like you're using the same kind of tools that you set up internally for your own company to do SEO. Like Google Search Console is coming up with a lot of great data for you to be able to understand why people are interested in looking at data on your site. So it's kind of funny. And
Yes, sure.
I love to talk about the tools of Google Search Console and Google Analytics. Are there any other fun, good tools that you find really helpful for any of the things that you talked about?
Yes. My part is more to make the technical part of the SEO team. But the most time we use the Systrix, Google Search Console, Google Analytics, the Screaming Frog. It's a very good tool. Also Audisto and Power BI for analytics.
Cool. That's
Yes.
a cool stack.
Yes.
I feel like there's
a
always
lot of tools.
a lot of tools. It's always a lot of tools in our space, right?
Yes,
Always a lot
yes.
of tools. Interesting. So, one thing that we always wonder about is, what are the kind of typical challenges to getting certain things implemented at the company? Just there's a lot of people listening that are trying to implement things at their company. Do you have any tips or for people trying to implement SEO strategy or try to do something like a new Core Web Vitals update if they're having challenges in their company?
Yes, there are a lot of tactics. For me, I prefer newsletter. There are a lot of very good newsletters in the internet from agencies, from Search Engine Land or Google News, and there are a lot of important SEO managers from other big companies. And of course of Google. Yeah, I don't know if you know John Mueller, but John Mueller, it's very nice. He has a lot of good SEO stuff, and he did a lot in the past, and I think he will do a lot in the future. There are very good videos from John Mueller. So yes, this is a very good tactic. Yes.
Yeah. So are you just like sending newsletter snippets to people across the team, or those are good kind of places to find things of how to implement and how to get your boss to go for or the head of engineering to go for something that's a big project, but we think it's necessary in SEO?
Yes, the most time I've talked with my other SEO members or team members about new Google stuff. So Google, it's the black. Sometimes Google it's a black box, and sometimes Google, tells something about new Google updates, like the page experience update. It was a very big update.
Yes.
Yes, we talked a lot in our team.
That's good. That's good. That's good. So, one thing that I keep on wondering is like, have you discovered, a better way to do something in SEO that might be helpful for other people?
Yes. I think not to forget SEO hygiene. It's very important. The status or URLs with status codes 404 or 301. It's very important, and you have to make it. I think every second month or 3 times a year. It depends on the company size or on the size of the website. How many URLs do you have? Yes, and I think it's also good if you make try and error. It also depends on the project, but the most time you have to think about what can happen. The worst case is less visibility in Systrix, but a good SEO team has to be very open-minded and trying what the SEO community is talking about, especially Google. So yes.
So when it comes to 301s or 404s, what are you typically doing to try to find them, to stay, current with them, make sure things don't change into 404s? Is there any tactics that are helpful there?
Yes, or I think the SEO community just have to do it with the crawler, with the good crawler, maybe with the SEO Screaming Frog. yes, I think it's a good way to find all 301s or few 404s.
Yeah. I mean, the important thing is like keeping those 301s intact, right? So doing like a migration or something like that where URLs are changing. And if you've done like 4 migrations in a row, things can get really, really awry. And then you got to make sure all those 301s are always intact. And then it becomes a long chain. So it's definitely hard to always remember and always make sure everything is working really well. But it's super important.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see it all the time where there are a lot of page issues where it's either a page, we're getting more than 301s or 404s. We're getting like, 599s from some people. We get 410s or 412s. You name it. I get these weird errors that I see, and I'm like, wow, I have to look up that HTTP error code because I've seen so many error codes for what I've seen in the space. And it's kind of crazy that it's, 301s and 404s, I think, are the tip of the iceberg of how many different kinds of errors can just pop up randomly and affect your experience for your users, one, and then also search. So
yes,
yeah.
there are a lot of error codes. I think the most important error codes you have to look it up is the 001 or the 404. I think you have the most problems on our website with these 2 codes.
For
But
sure.
yes, I know there are a lot of others, but I think they don't happen so many times.
No, they don't happen very many. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I have so much visibility that I just see like, so many different domains and so many different types of issues.
Yes.
That it's kind of a good kind of perspective that I get to see. But it's always interesting because 404s, I see a lot of 404s, like you're saying, and having good fallback pages or rerouting people when, like, let's say example, like sometimes there's e-commerce sites that have 404s when like a product gets sold out. And that is just so interesting to me because someone's searching for the product, it's sold out, it might come back later, or there's probably a similar product that's like pretty helpful for that user, but instead they've given a 404, right? And so, and even Amazon does this, right? I search for stuff like I was looking for I think gardening gloves, right? I'm doing some weeding these days, and my gloves, I had a hole in them, and I'm like, okay, I got to find a better gardening glove, right? Something that's going to last more than a couple weeks before it gives me holes. And so I searched and I found an article, and there's not a whole lot of gardening gloves. It's not like stuff written in 20 best gardening gloves 2022. It's like stuff from 4 or 5 years ago. And I click on a link and I was like, this one looks good. And of course I get the sorry dog from Amazon. And I'm like, oh man, the sorry dog is so disappointing because I'm like, you could have routed me to gardening gloves, like a listing page that has other gardening gloves, or you could have, you could give me to the category that it used to be in. So many different ways where I had to go back and then I had to find a different glove, or I had to go actually type in Amazon, which is funny. I typed in like Amazon, the exact kind of gardening glove, the name brand, and the whole like title of what that gardening glove was. And I got some results and I was like, okay, this is helpful now. So I'm just like, there's so many loose ends that even gigantic companies have. So that's one thing where I think a lot of SEOs don't realize that there's a lot of loose ends on every property. And I think getting comfortable with trying to fix the things that are important. Like you said, hey, 404s and 301s are more important than some of the other error codes because those happen a lot less often. So I think that's really important of what is important to figure out what is important. Do you have any thoughts about how to prioritize yourself of what projects are more important than others, and how do you make those determinations?
You mean projects I'm working on now?
No, I mean in general, like how do you prioritize what you think is the most important thing to change for SEO on your properties that you've worked on?
It depends on the project, but I think you have to figure out what can happen in the worst case. So we've talked about 404s or 301s. I think to lose people, if you will not fix it, it's very hard because there are so many pages or Google shows so many searches or SERPs. And when the user decided to change to another website, it's very hard. You will lose your user. And the amount of other company, it's too big. So we will have a look what is good for the users. The users, you want that users want to come to your website. And you have to know your users and prepare your website for users. And I think this is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of SEOs, especially on the technical side, had never started out with the kind of design first thinking that people have now of users are super important. So we have to understand what they're looking for, right? I think 25 years ago, it was like almost a game of trying to just generate traffic. And there was a lot of trickery, maybe I wouldn't say like bad trickery necessarily. It was like a lot of link building, a lot of things like that to try to make your company stand out. And a lot of on-page stuff or writing articles that are not that meaningful just to get users to the page and try to get them routed to where you want them to go. But I feel like now there's a lot more focus on making sure that the experience is better for the user so that they don't go back to the SERPs and that they get what they want, like helping them complete the task. And that is a real difference to me of how SEO has changed from maybe kind of like an attitude of almost like a Wild West attitude in the early 2000s to one where it's so focused on improving the experience, improving what's there for the user. And I think that's wonderful because what it does is it helps rise up all the properties. It helps make the content better. It helps make the experience for when you go search and you click on a result from something for you, that you're going to get something that actually matters and makes sense for you. I still think there's a lot of bad stuff out there. I'm not saying like everything is great because I see a lot of there's so many review websites that are just like, oh my God, the worst reviews ever, and like just stuffing Amazon click links to get their affiliate money. And I'm like, there's going to be a day where there's like really good review sites are only getting my search. But so I still think there's a lot of work to be done on a general basis. But I feel like most SEOs that I know are trying to move in that direction of trying to provide a much better experience for their users. So, I mean, that really brings up a good point of like, well, if we think that user experience is super important, you're focused on it at where you're working and you're trying to improve that. What should everyone in our space stop doing these days?
Yeah, that is what I've already told, that they don't forget the SEO hygiene. It's very important. And I think most companies focus on big projects. But the SEO hygiene sometimes I think will be in the background. It's not that good because it's very important that your errors, that you have to fix the errors, that the users can find what they want, and that you have a clear website without errors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that makes sense for what people should really start focusing on. Do you think that there's anything that people are just focusing their attention in a way that doesn't help?
That's a good question. I really don't know. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
No examples.
So I think another interesting thing that you might have perspective for, maybe for people that are just, they don't know as much about technical SEO, or they're scared about it, or things like that. Maybe can you tell me a little bit about why you really like technical SEO and why you got interested in that?
Yes, sure. I prefer the technical SEO because when you're working on it, you can see very quick the results. Not on every project. Sometimes you need more time because it's a very big project, like to optimize the core web vitals on your website. I know it was a very big project at Statista, I think for all companies, but I know for now that research has shown that core web vitals ratings improved significantly, I think more than 58%. Yes, and I guess that you can fix quick some things, but for some projects you need more time because
I mean,
you have so many departments on your site and have to discuss many things. Yes.
when it comes to Core Web Vitals, I feel like that was like a wave that came through the SEO space. And the interesting thing to me was, I remember we were doing a new onboarding for SEO Radar, and my developers implemented the design, and I realized that there was a content layout shift, right? And so my SEO thought of like, wait, but and the funny thing is, so we have like a public side, which is a landing page and a public facing area, and then we have an application side that's behind a login wall, so Google doesn't really get in there. And that was where I was focused. It was behind the layout, the wall was after a sign in. And so the interesting thing to me is like I was still so focused on the SEO aspect, but a lot of my thought was, well, we have to make sure that the user experience is good throughout the user experience. I don't want to lose a user because I have a content layout shift on my onboarding when it's 3 pages in, where it doesn't matter to Google, but it matters to me as a company, and it matters to me on a conversion and things like that. So I feel like there's a lot of SEO tips and tactics that are making their ways past SEO. Are you seeing that as well? Or is that?
Yes, it also depends on what you put on your website. Sometimes maybe you have different graphics on your website and they don't have the same size. And so it can be very hard for the developer to make a good coding, that the coding is or have the same, how to explain, that it can happen on both sizes at the same time. It's very hard because some sites are so big, then there are also videos, different sizes of an image, and maybe you have defined boxes for texts, and they are in a different way. And that's the reason why it's so hard to code or to make a good coding for these different things you put on your website. And so sometimes it's very hard to fix the layout shift.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's definitely not an easy problem to address. And it sounds like you've definitely been through a lot of challenging conversations of how to fix that. So is there any tips that you have of like where to start, or if you're starting a new page or taking an old page, how would you go about it now, considering what you've learned?
It's very important, for example, for images, that you have to give the size for the image. Otherwise, if you will not give a size in the coding, Google will make it by his own. So he will Google has to check the size, and Google needs a lot of time for that. And this is not good for the performance. So you need height and weight, and you have to put it into the coding. And then this is good for Google. And maybe when you will put some videos on your website, it's also important that maybe the video will loading just when you click on the video, not before.
Yeah.
Or when you scroll on the website, that the video will load not at the first time, just when you crawl at the end of the website, for example. Or you can use different ways to implement it, the video on your website. It's also important. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think one of those was lazy loading. Is that what you meant for?
Yeah, lazy loading, right?
Yeah. It's funny because there's so many funny terms in this industry of how to get around some of these core web vitals issues and make the experience better. So,
yes.
Yeah. So let's see. Now I think we definitely have some time to shine the spotlight on you. Are there any projects you're working on or anything that you'd like people to know or anywhere you'd like people to get in touch with you?
Yes, we are working, or there are a lot of projects we are working on in our SEO team. But I think one of the next projects will be removing AMP. It will be a very new project, so we don't have experience. I think like so many other companies. I think some companies already did it.
Yeah.
But we have it on our
I feel like it's a controversial thing of like, do you remove AMP? I remember maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we were trying to decide whether we'd do responsive or AMP. So what was the thoughts about removing AMP? And are you moving to a fully responsive? Is that what you're doing now, or what's the end goal look like?
I think it will be more easier at the end for all of our team, for the SEOs in our team, and for the web developer. But
because it's all one site now, or why do you think, why will it be different for you guys or easier?
So it will be easier because our web developers don't have to code extra AMP sites. So yes.
Yeah, instead of
less work.
Coding it twice. I get it. That definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Do you know what's your thoughts about search impact of AMP versus the responsive pages? Have you tested it out? How confident are you that you'll have a good result on search?
I think there can be SEO impact. I think it is important not to make it for the whole page. I think you have to take a page type or maybe 100 or 1,000 URLs. I don't know. We have to try. But I think it's better not to make it at the same time for the whole site, because when there will be some errors or
so test it out first and see what happens.
Yes.
Cool. Great. That's great. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, where should they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Marina Kurz. Yes. So
all right.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Well, this is a really fun interview. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us on SEO Unveiled.
Thank you so much. It was very nice.